For all my Fortnite players out there who are trying to drastically improve movement, let me just say that this video will help you out a shit ton. What we're going to do is break this video down into 3 parts. Part 1 is going to be what causes bad movement. Part 2 is going to be the examples of bad movement. Actually, examples of good and bad movement, so you know right from wrong. Part 3 is going to be drills and routines I use to continue improving my movement, because when I swap the keyboard and mouse, man, my movement goes way down. And this video is a universal video for controller players, keyboard and mouse players, mobile players. A lot of stuff in here will be used, and I've tried to pack it with as much useful information for as many different types of players as possible. So it's very important that you watch all the way through to the last part. Like I said, part 3 is the last part, and that's going to be the drills and routines I use to continue improving my movement. That is basically the cherry on top for this video. Now, I'm just going to quickly introduce myself, and then we're going to move on to part 1. I am a Fortnite coach. My goal is to help you improve drastically as a player. So if this video does help you out, man, make sure to drop a subscribe, because you're going to get so much tips to help you dominate Season 6 from these videos. Now, moving on in. Part 1, what causes bad movement? Again, there's 3 main reasons to why you have bad movement, man. Most of them actually are in your control. Some of them aren't. The first one isn't in your control, not really. And this one's for my controller players, which is stick drift. I've seen it time and time again that you can actually get intense left stick drift. And that's because a lot of people have left stick as their either pickaxe button, their jump button, their edit button. Now think of how many times you're spamming them. Okay, and that's why the right one does get it a lot of times as well, because you're spamming up and down when you're crouching, because that is the default. But for left stick, man, it's drastic, man. You can be standing there, your guy's doing a fucking moonwalk across the map, man. I'm not even messing. So you need to watch out for that. And obviously make sure your dead zones are correct. And just, try and keep on top of your stick drift, man. 2 is bad keybinds. Bad keybinds are everybody's worst enemy, man. And you do not know good keybinds. So what I can do is at the very end of this video, I will put in, I will tag a little video. So it's going to be all my best binds for Fortnite, and I'll do one for controller. So it'll be like a keyboard one on the left and a controller one on the right. They're all the binds I'm using in Season 6 today. Now, that out of the way, that's a good reason to watch straight through till the end. But look, the last bit of this is bad positioning. Part 1, the last part of part 1 is bad positioning and peaks. You have no idea, man. I'm not even talking about physical movement now. I'm talking about setting yourself up to setting yourself up in zone to cut off a team or outplay a team positionally, and rotations. I'm talking about that, man. That is bad movement as well. It's not one-to-one or hand-to-hand combat kind of movement, but it's like long-term kind of movement, and how you decide to move to get to a certain position. You decide to get in a car and rotate a certain way. You decide to hit a zip line or swim, peppers. They're all big decisions, man. So I'm going to be talking a bit about that. And then on top of that, peaks. You're going to have movement, different types of peaks. I'm talking left-hand peak and right-hand peak. Everyone knows that right-hand peak is way more has more advantages. But you can bait with left-hand peak as well if your opponent is intelligent enough. And that's what I've noticed. I'm going to close up part 1 right now, but I want to tell you what I noticed. I noticed that when you're playing against some very smart players, and let me rephrase, okay? It's actually very hard to pull plays on stupid players, because they're so brain dead. They don't know what's going to come, so you can't really predict their reaction. Because I've noticed hitting guys 189, and their reaction isn't to back up and heal. Their reaction is to start spraying my wall, and I'm like, what is this kid doing? You need to cop on. And I'm sure you guys have all had those fights as well. But people just need to you can't pull off a drastic play on a terrible person because they don't know what's happening. So that's just a little bonus info, a little bit of sprinkle of salt. But anyway, moving on to part 2. Part 2 is examples of bad movement and good movement. So I'm gonna go real in depth right now. I'll throw bad movement first, and I'll break it down live with you, and then I'm gonna go hop into good movement, and then we're gonna come back to this one-on-one face cam kind of thing. Okay, so yeah, enjoy that bit, and then I'll see you for part 3 back here. Now, boys, if you learned anything useful in that part, in that segment, in the whole video so far, you should really hit that sub button. Simply because I'm trying to help as many people as I can. I'm not trying to get my sub count up. The numbers are important, man, don't get me wrong. But every number equals 1 person. So for every 1 subscriber is 1 person. And I think a lot of people misunderstand that. They just see it as numbers on a screen, man. I'm helping people. Every time that sub count goes up, it just means I'm helping more people, and that's the way I see it, man. So if you want to improve as fast as possible, I do recommend you to hit that sub button, but again, it is up to you. Moving on to part 3, the finesse of the video, okay? The drills and routines I use to continue improving my movement. We're going to talk a lot about 3 things. Free builds, death runs, and edit courses. They're the 3 main things that you should be using to improve your movement. Free builds definitely are the best because they're the most in-game scenario. Like when you're trying to do like certain angles, side jumps, that's all movement. That's more of the hand-to-hand combat movement. But if you're talking about even just trying to get controller movement down on a keyboard, you know, like there's loads of ways you can get controller movement on keyboard. I will actually, no, I was going to say I'll link an It's Jerian video at the end just to help you boys out, but I don't think I want to, man. I think most people are here that they know about movement, and this is kind of it's not a dead video. It's a useful video, but I'm coming at movement in a different angle, talking about what you can actually physically do to improve your movement rather than software you can get to give you controller movement. And I know most of my boys out here are controller players, so it's kind of useless to them. So look, getting back on track. Free builds, definitely the god way to improve your movement. Edit courses, then I would come in like, they're okay. Edit course is actually drastically okay for movement, because especially if it's not an edit course that's in a straight line and it's more zigzaggy, aka my edit course, it's a lot of zigzags in that. Very good for your movement, man, and I highly recommend it. I will have the code for that in the description, so it's there for you if you want it, I guess. But the most overpowered way, I believe, other than free builds, to improve your movement is definitely death runs. It's kind of like you'll improve your movement in a way that it's not realistic. You'll make your movement so cracked and more cracked than it needs to be by doing death runs. And they're actually alright. They're a bit of crack to do, aka crack over here in Ireland is not the drug. A bit of crack is just a bit of fun. So they're actually fun to do death runs. So if you have a few buddies and they all want to improve movement, or even if they don't, just get them on to play some death runs, vibe out for an hour or 2. Do that once, twice, 3 times a week. Find new death runs and mess around in them, you know. So it's not a bad idea. But look, that's the end of the video. I have 2 videos on screen right now. One is going to be the one for my binds for controller, and then the binds for keyboard. So hopefully they help out. And yeah, man, drop videos, drop comments in the bottom of the video. You know what I mean? Drop comments, man. I reply to every comment, and I hope it helps you out. I'm out of here, though.